3, 2, 1. was that one of those? That's one of those Buck Owens, Don Rich things, isn't it?
Yeah, a piece of one, in a way, a little bit.
You go way back to those days, the beginning of the Bakersfield sound. You and Buck Owens, of course, were there, and many others. What was it like in those days? I don't. We look at it now, and we know that you guys developed that Bakersfield sound, and you tried all kinds of revolutionary ideas. But what was it like sitting there with Buck Owens as an example in session work, even before you guys went to Capitol in L.A.?
Buck was cutting stuff there in Bakersfield. Well, I did too. Norman Hamlet, Roy Nichols was there then, and he's instrumental in the Bakersfield sound. Norman Hamlet, whom is Merle Haggard's steel player still today. Myself and several other people. The players back then: Oscar Whittington, Jelly Sanders, Bill Woods.
You guys all traded ideas, and you just kind of developed as you went along.
Yeah, and we didn't know the Nashville system back then, so we had to learn the songs, but everybody, we didn't play sections like they do here, and signature things. The signature things would be like the sound of the Don Rich's guitar, for example, or the sound of Buck's guitar. Buck had, ever since I can remember, Buck used to have the barn dance places around. He had the Fresno Barn in Fresno, and there was Cousin Herb Henson in Bakersfield, had a TV show every day, and Roy played on that, and several other people. Fuzzy Owens was in the deal. He was, well, now I played on some of the early Gene Shepard hits, but I played rhythm guitar. Louis Talley played lead, and Fuzzy played steel. I think Jelly Sanders probably played fiddle. And I've done a couple of things where Buck played rhythm on some of the things, but some of the things I played rhythm, he played lead on, with other artists down there at Capitol.
That's great.
But in the valley there, I lived in Visalia between Fresno and Bakersfield. And Fresno was a good music town also. It had basically all of Bob Wills' players. When Bob folded, most of them moved there. Tommy Duncan lived in Mariposa, just out of Fresno there. And Dave Stogner was there, had a couple of big radio shows in Fresno. Joe Hawley, the left-handed fiddle player that had been with Bob Wills. Kelso, the piano player, and I believe the trumpet player. And Tiny Moore and some of the other players were up in Sacramento from Bob Wills.
Well, what amazes me, and I really appreciate this, is you've taken all those years of your experience with all these great players and singers, and you brought them to your studio here in Nashville, Gene Breeden Studios. And the artists that come here, they have a choice of recording with everybody like you did in the old days, everybody in the studio together, or you can do the separate tracks, whatever they want to do. And you bring your experience, and you try to guide some of these people that are trying to make a career in the music business. In fact, you have a lot of veterans that come here. And I dare say it's because they appreciate your experience as well.
Well, I appreciate that. We've had several major projects that have had so many of the great people on. I've been here 30 years in Nashville, and I came here, I spent 10 years in Oregon after leaving the San Joaquin Valley there. And so that's 40 years right there. I had a lady call me a year ago and said, Mr. Breeden, you recorded a session with my brothers and my dad, and I wondered if you still had a 45 of that.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I said, man, that has to be a long time ago, and I don't have 45s because usually the client, everything is shipped to them, so I don't usually have anything like that. And anyway, she said, she said, that was in Visalia. I said, oh, was that part of the Tucker family? And she said, yes, it was. And I said, ma'am, that's been a while ago. And she said, I don't remember. It was either 58 or 59. And at that time, I had the studios in my backyard. Norman Hamlet and I built it out there. I think it fell down on us. I can't remember for sure. If the doors wouldn't close good, but we did a lot of music in there. Barbara Mandrell cut her first stuff there. And we had Paul, name slipped out of my head. He wrote Straighten Up, Make Room for the Blues. We did his sessions out of Alaska. Paul Harper.
Well, that brings me another point, because not only do you record great country music, but over the years you've worked with rock and roll artists, even back in the surfing days, isn't that right? You cut some sessions on those guys?
We did. There was a pretty famous rock group called the Charades, and we did their first sessions. And it was all surfing music and everything then, you know.
Yeah.
And Gary Paxton, when he had the Monster Mash and all that, he come down and did demos at my studio, so nobody in Hollywood would know what he was going to be up to. He'd come down there and did it.
He certainly hit a home run with that one, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Man.
He hit a lot of home runs. So Gary's considered to be a genius in the industry by anybody in the industry. You know.
When did Haggard come along on the Bakersfield sound scene? Was it in the 50s or the 60s?
It was in the 60s, as I remember. I was managing a music store for a corporation that had White's Music Centers in Visalia. When Merle and Fuzzy was producing back then even, and when Merle would get a new single, I had a record department in my store as well as guitars and brass instruments and a big record department. So he'd bring by his new 45s and leave me some, you know. He just wanted to make sure that if anybody wanted the record, it was there.
Oh man,
so, yeah.
He was just starting, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
Man.
He did some stuff, some overdub stuff, I believe, in Phoenix, or I might have that backwards. There might have been tracks there and overdubs around Bakersfield, but Louis Talley had a studio there. Him, I think Fuzzy was in on the studio with him. Norman Hamlin and I used to go down there, and all the players, Roy Nichols and all the rest of them down there, were working at some of the clubs in Bakersfield, and they'd get off and go to breakfast and then start recording by 3:30 in the morning.